Upgrade your shit.
Hey, what's up everyone? So today we're going to do some pails and rails for hip flexion. I'm going to take myself to here. So I'm going to notice my passive range of hip flexion is here, right? So I have maybe about 3 or 4 inches above this box that I can go with hip flexion, but my active range is about here. So there's a little gap in the range between my passive and active ratio. So I want to close that gap. So how am I going to close that gap here today, since this box only goes this high? Well, I'm going to change the position of my torso. So I'm going to stand up nice and tall. I'm going to bring my belly button forward. So instead of rounding through the back to close this angle here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my body forward. Now that's going to take me further into dorsiflexion here at the ankle, but it's also going to close this angle up between my thigh and my abdomen. What I'm going to do is spend 2 minutes here, and in that 2 minutes I'm just going to focus on my breath. So we should have rooted around, that's one thing that I didn't say before, we should have rooted around to find a line of tension that we want to work here. So if I'm not feeling any line of tension, I can play around with the pelvis just a little bit and find a line of tension that I can stretch, put on stretch back here. So we're working both sides of this joint, the closing angle or the short angle and the open angle, which is the lengthened tissue. So our pails contraction is going to include this tissue here. Our rails contraction is going to include this tissue here. This is important because we're teaching the joint how to create and absorb force at the depth of the squat. It's also important because we're getting the nervous system and the body accustomed to being at this depth. And so we rarely spend time when we go into our squat and we load the bar and we do things, we barely spend any time at the very, very bottom learning to produce and create force. So this is a good way to kind of set up and get into this position without load in order to train and adapt to this position here. So we've spent about a minute here. We normally would spend another minute, but for the sake of time, what I'm going to do is teach you the pails and rails. So for our pails contraction, we want to use this tissue here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my foot and I'm going to slowly begin to make it heavy on the box, okay, as if I'm trying to step up and out of this position. So I'm trying to find this tissue and trying to drive this foot into the floor using this tissue back here. Okay, I'm ramping up to my greatest, safest effort over the course of 5 to 15 seconds. And then after I finish ramping up, I'm going to hold it there for 5 seconds. And then in 3, 2, 1, I'm going to immediately contract this tissue here from the shortened angle and try to bring this knee to my chest. Now, because I'm at in range, I can't bring that knee any further forward than it actually is. I'm just contracting this stuff here. So I'm sniffing some air into the abdomen. I'm fighting to try to pull that to my chest. And in 3, 2, 1, we slowly allow that tissue to relax and breathe on out and through it. Okay, so that's a pails and rails contraction for hip flexion from this kind of split step up position that puts you in a close position similar to what you would experience at the depth of your squat.
Upgrade your shit.